Bradshaw, when we first came in, was just doing the thing that he does to all the young guys, just kind of testing the water, seeing what was going on with us. And I remember when Jeff and I really didn't drink, we were in Greensboro, and I remember he said, well, when you guys drive home, when you guys drive home, make sure to get a six-pack and, drink all the...
Go ahead.
I remember Bradshaw just said, he says, when you guys leave from Greensboro tonight and you're driving back home to your house in North Carolina, he said, I want you to get 6 bottles of beer, whatever. He said, drink all the beers on the way home and throw all the bottles at street signs. I'll see you tomorrow in Charlotte or whatever. He said, that's your assignment for tonight. And we just took it kind of jokingly. We saw him in Charlotte the next night, and he said, well, His Arties, did you fulfill the assignment? We were like, oh, actually we did. We didn't get any beer on the way home. Just thinking, he said, you didn't? He said, that's what I asked you to do. He said, well, you two can go to hell. And he's kind of half-ass joking, but, at the time we didn't even think about it. Like Jeff said, we just should have lied. We just should have lied. And I remember, the following weekend, we were in San Antonio, and we went to the dressing rooms there. It was the old building out there. There was I can't remember what the name of that building is.
Freeman?
Yes, the
Freeman
Coliseum. Freeman Coliseum. It's an old building. Real hot during the summer, real cold during the winter.
Right.
And there's 2 places where there's locker rooms. And we were in one locker room where half the crew was. And we went and had our match. And Bradshaw came in and made everybody move their bags out. And then he took our bags and hid them. And we came in there and we're going, he says, well, if you guys went and dressed in your own personal locker room like a couple prima donnas, somebody'd probably watch your bags and nobody'd be able to mess with them. He said, that's terrible that they're missing. He said, if you'd come dressed beside me every week, he said, I'd make sure nothing ever happened to your bags. And you're like, dude, we're our credit cards, all money, everything's in there. We had no idea where it was. And actually, Road Dogg smartened us up. He said, they're just out back. He said, they're out, by the dumpster out back. He said, don't tell anybody I told you that. And I remember we went and got our bags, and everything was fine. It was all sitting right there. And then we came in and came back in. We said, well, I'll make sure to dress beside you every time from now on out, Mr. Bradshaw, and I hope no one else messes with our bags anymore. So it was about the extent of that. But then, now, Don Callis, Jackal, had a ton of heat. He probably had more heat than anybody has ever had at the WWE.
What did it stem from?
I think just kind of being arrogant and not conforming to the policy there, not playing along with guys. And even when he was with the Acolytes, I think he was put with them as a rib just to make his life hell. So they hated him. They despised him.
Right.
So the deal was, Bradshaw, we were in Hartford, Connecticut. And I remember he was starting to warm up to us a little bit, but he never fully caved in and just became himself around us. I remember we were sitting in catering, and he came up and said, well, His Artie, there's one guy here, Monkey Boy, that's all I ever called him. He said, Monkey Boy, he said, who I really can't stand, and who the Undertaker really can't stand, and who so-and-so can't stand, and so-and-so, and he named 50 people. And all these guys can't stand him. He said, but let's just suppose you and your brother happen to come across some toothpicks, and he slid toothpicks, a box, on our legs, underneath the table. Let's just suppose you happen to come across some toothpicks. And we just found out that son of a bitch was dressing in his car, and let's just suppose those toothpicks just happened to be broken off in the keyholes of his door. And let's just suppose he couldn't get into his car anymore, and he wouldn't be able to get to any of his stuff, and he wouldn't be able to change for the show tonight, or he wouldn't be able to drive back to his hotel. I mean, that'd be terrible, wouldn't it? So let's just suppose this might happen to happen. And I imagine the Undertaker would be very happy with you and your brother. And I imagine I would be very happy with you and your brother. And I'd actually like to buy you boys a beer after that. Let's just suppose that would happen. And I remember Jeff was and I just looked at Jeff and said, cool, man, I got it. I said, let's just suppose it did happen. And then Bradshaw and Ron were doing their thing, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they kind of fucked around with him, but they didn't go all the way on it. But we did enough to gain the respect, and then from then on out, Bradshaw was nothing but cool. I got along with him great after that. From then out.
Yeah, JBL Meanie incident.
I never really saw it because I didn't even watch all the way. I didn't watch the very end of that pay-per-view. I watched the majority of it, which I thought was a really good pay-per-view, especially because still being a WWE produced pay-per-view, they really let them go on a limb and kind of do an ECW style thing. It really was a believable ECW style thing. But Bradshaw's Bradshaw, and like I said, right now I don't have a bad thing to say about him because I've had some great times with the guy, but it's in his character to be a bully sometimes. And if there's somebody that he doesn't like, he's definitely not afraid to bully them around. And I guess that happened with Mania that night. And like I said, I can't tell you, I didn't see the footage. So I guess Meany was busted open, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
Bradshaw really started nailing him and busted
Yeah.
back open. So that doesn't surprise me. It's definitely a Bradshaw type